The following program is made possible in part by a generous grant from the Educational Foundation of America.
City University Television. In association with the Center for Advanced Study in Theater Arts. And the Harold Clurman Endowment. Presents Spotlight.
Welcome to the Harold Clurman Seminar on Theater. I'm Ed Wilson, and my guest is a person known with great admiration and affection as the Queen of Off-Broadway, Miss Lucille Lortel. Lucille, welcome. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
Thank you.
How come you left out the Tsarina of Gorky Street?
I should have said the Tsarina of Gorky Street.
Okay.
And for our listeners who may not be aware, that's because you just took
a walk in the woods to Moscow.
A walk in the woods to Moscow.
Because I remember you saying it when we had the chair.
Exactly. When it was established, we might as well mention that right now. It's the Lucille Lortel Distinguished Chair in Theater at the City University of New York, and it's the first chair in theater named for a woman in this country. So we should mention that just as we're getting started here.
And George White, you mentioned the Tsarina
of Gorky Street because of your taking a walk in the woods to Russia. Let's talk, since we mentioned a walk in the woods. You've done so many controversial plays, so many new plays. You did Jean Genet in this country when he was a controversial playwright. You have
Fugard's Blood Knot.
Athol Fugard, Blood Knot, South African plays. You've done a lot of new American...
Albert, right. Which was done at my theater.
Right. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, though, because I want to come to A Walk in the Woods, which is one of the most recent, how do you decide what you're going to do?
I don't decide what I'm going to do. If I read a play, like I did Fugard, which was done some time ago, and like it, there's something that the play has to say to me. And I don't do it with the idea of making money. I don't object to making money because if I make it, then I could put it on other plays.
Yes.
But I feel one has to do something that is important and not just an ordinary comedy for laughs and you forget about it. I think that things that I pick out, you go home and think about it. And that's the sort of plays I like to do. And that unconsciously, those are the plays that interest me.
And can you tell when you either, I know you probably sometimes hear a reading of the play or you read it yourself, can you tell almost immediately whether you're attracted to it or not?
In the old days when I was able to read it, yes. And when I see a play done, like A Walk in the Woods, or... I saw The Balcony in England, in London.
That's the Jean Genet play.
Jean Genet. And I fell in love with that. And I said, I just got to do it. So I met Genet in Paris.
Yes.
And he gave me the rights to do it.
Was that difficult to persuade him to do that?
Well, he had a fight with Lars Schmidt. And Lars Schmidt had the rights, and Peter Brook wanted to do it at my theater, the Delice. And because of the run of Threepenny Opera, I couldn't do it. And but Genet let me have. We got along famously. I mean,
what was it like to talk to him? What was he like?
Well, I had my husband along as interpreter. My husband spoke French very well. Genet didn't speak English so well, and I didn't speak French so well. But we enjoyed each other, and so he let me have the script. But he let me have it for 3 years before I was able to do it elsewhere because of the run of Threepenny Opera. And Peter Brook couldn't wait any longer, and Audrey Wood asked me if I would let Jose Quintero direct it, so I did it with Circle in the Square.
Yes. And
as far as Fugard's play, I just read that and fell in love with that.
Are you talking about the Blood Knot now?
About Blood Knot. And that we did, because of Threepenny again, I can do it at my theater. So we did it at the Cricket Theater.
Well, now,
and then later, Blood Knot went to Broadway. and was
Yes.
nominated for a Tony.
Right. But it seems to me, if I recall correctly, you were very helpful to Athol Fugard when he came to this country. I mean, didn't he?
Well, actually, when Fugard came here, he was very poor, and he didn't have a place to stay. And my co-producer, Leonard Bernstein, was in the hospital. And I think it was John Berry who directed and had to leave. And Krishna Shah was the first one, the Indian, who gave me the script to read. So Fugard did come and played it. He played the white man. And James Earl Jones played the black man. They were two brothers. And he was very thrilled with the reception of
That really
Blood Knight.
launched his career, didn't it? And now you've been involved in several of his ventures since then, obviously.
Well, actually repeated Blood Knight.
Right.
I also did Hello and Goodbye, which was done on the matinee series. And Simon, not John Simon, the critic here, but
Right.
Simon, the director,
Right.
who did Rosa Albert, directed it at the matinee series. I like his plays. Most
I know
of
you
them
do.
are very
I know.
interesting.
Well, before we leave the subject of Fugard, you've been very helpful with a lot of South African work. I know when Serafina was done at Lincoln Center, you really took that to
actually,
Broadway.
it's the same author who
Yes.
did Rosa Albert.
Right.
And it's the sort of thing I like. And I felt it was worthwhile doing. And when Lincoln Center asked me they'd like to move it to Broadway, would I help them out on that? And it was a contribution. I had it at the time. It's before I was doing A Walk in the Woods.
Yes.
And I just felt it was worthwhile, and I just did it. This is the sort of thing I do.
I think to many people's surprise, Serafina turned out to be quite a hit.
Amazing. They didn't expect it.
Yeah. Let's come back to A Walk in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when did you first see that?
Well, I first saw it at Yale.
The Yale Repertory Theater.
In New Haven, and I fell in love with it. And I told everybody they should see it. I told every producer, and they got to see it because I didn't think I would bother doing anything anymore. And finally, I said, what am I doing? This is something I really want to do, but I wanted to do it in my theater. I felt that this two-character play would have a long run in the Lortel Theater, and I didn't think of it for Broadway. But the author, the director, and Lloyd Richards wanted it for Broadway. And so we did it on Broadway, but it was pretty tough because the Times critic, if you don't get a rave review from the Times critic, they tell me you're a dead duck. And after we opened, we didn't get it. We got a good review from the News and the Post. But I was told that no other critics would review it unless you kept it running. And Manny Eisenberg, who was the general manager at the time, and my manager, and everybody said, close the show. I just felt I couldn't do it. It was just something I said was so important. I felt so worthwhile. I was sorry it wasn't off-Broadway, but I said I'm going to keep it going. There was one hitch. The author wanted the same director to do it, and
This is if it went to England, for example.
If it went to England,
Yes.
and
You had an offer in England from
Alec Guinness.
Sir Alec Guinness wanted to play it in London.
Alec Guinness wanted to do it, and the author before that said no, that he wanted Des McAnuff to do the play. So that night when everybody said to close it, I called up the author's agent and I said, look, if you let Alec Guinness do it with the director he wants, I'll continue this play for the push, which they said would take 3 weeks. And finally the author agreed because it would have closed and never gone anywhere. And we waited some time before Alec was able to do it, and it was a big hit in London. Then George White had this symposium and having people go to Russia, and I spoke to the Russians and said, I think it's a very important play and should be done in Russia. And this is the first new American play that they put up 2/3 of the money to bring it over there.
And so
I had to get the 1/3, which was plenty.
Yes.
But anyway, they are now doing it with a Russian actor. The leading Russian actor is playing it in repertory in Russia. And it's very unusual for a new American play in that subject.
Absolutely. We should say that the subject of the play, and Sam Waterston and Robert Prosky opened in New York and then went to Moscow when you took
yes,
when you
but
took
we
it
went
to Moscow.
first to Washington.
Yes, you went to Washington. Tell me about that Washington trip.
Well, they invited us to play before the Senate in Washington, and it was at the Library of Congress. And George Shultz spoke, and the Russian ambassador was there, and they all loved it. And it's so exciting because everybody wants it now. And in January, it's opening in Israel at the Habima Theater. And the South Africans are doing it in repertory with them. And then I just heard about 2 days ago that they want to do it in Japan.
Isn't that
And that I will be getting some of the money back. But originally, I said that I would give the profits to Yale for new plays that I started there at the new drama at Yale.
Yes.
Fences was one of the first ones that was done under the
grant
Lucille
that you gave
Lortel
them.
auspices.
Yes.
So I felt that if I got the money back, they would get the profit.
Sure.
And well, it looked like the first night we weren't going to get any money back, but now it's doing quite well.
Well, because it played for several weeks in New York and got a Tony nomination.
Yes.
And this is because of your decision that night to keep it running.
And then it played for about 7 months in London, and I went to Moscow, and now Anthony Quinn is going to do a tour of in the United States.
We should say that the story of this is two men, a Russian diplomat and a United States diplomat, who are taking a walk in the woods in Switzerland during a peace conference, and they get to know each other and exchange ideas. And it's a very international play and a very timely play.
And it's very simple to do because you could do in any off-Broadway theater, any stock company.
Yes.
And we've been getting royalties for doing it all over.
Let me just, before we leave the subject of Broadway, let me just say that you've had a succession of plays that have been nominated for Tonys that you've done on Broadway. William Hoffman's As Is, The Blood Knot, which we've already mentioned, Sarafina, which we've mentioned, and A Walk in the Woods. And then you also did Lanford Wilson's Angels Fall. On
they
Broadway.
were all Tony nominated. But you see, As Is was the first play that was done on AIDS.
On AIDS, yes.
And I felt that was important. I just feel that somehow, even though they went to Broadway, they all started off Broadway first.
Well, that's what I want to come. I want to come to talk about two things that you've been so closely identified with. Mostly, of course, off-Broadway, even though you've made a real mark on Broadway. And it started, tell me how your association with Broadway started. How did all that get started?
Well, I started a theater in Westport, which is way off-Broadway, in 1947.
Now, that's the White Barn Theater.
The White Barn Theater. A friend of mine, Philip Houston and Canada Lee, had a script, and they asked me would I send it to my friends. It wasn't a particularly good script. It was called Painted Wagon. So I had a barn, and with folding chairs, we invited people to come to see it. And Audrey Wood was in the audience.
The agent.
The agent. And Audrey and everybody else was fascinated at seeing this reading. It's about one of the first readings that they've had. Before, I think they had Bacchus readings, but this was before an audience of theater people. And she said, I have something I think Lucille would be charming. It was a little musical called No Casting Today, and Joe Sullivan, that's her first job, was in that. Joe since has played for me several times at the White Barn, and also she did Polly in Threepenny Opera which I did at the DeLeese.
Right.
She was originally Polly Peachum.
Let's. In terms of the White Barn, we should say that it is a white barn, and it's in Westport, adjacent to your home, Connecticut,
yes.
adjacent to your home there. And you have, for I guess now 41 summers, had let people present things, tryouts really, of new plays, of foreign plays, of that kind of thing.
Well, actually, I would say it's 40 summers. A half a summer was this year, which I wasn't going to do because I went to Russia doing Walk in the Woods. But I couldn't resist the thought of doing Margaret Sanger's Unfinished Business, which Arlene Hackett, as a one-woman show, wanted to do.
Yes.
And that, at present, is playing off-Broadway in Fort Lauderdale for a month.
That's wonderful.
After we finished doing it as a workshop, it then went to the Westport Country Playhouse, and now I send them the script, and they liked it, and it's gone over.
That's wonderful.
But it's you see, again, the subject matter is important. It's very timely today.
Yes.
And I said, 40 years, that's it. First I said 15 years, that's it. My husband really got me the Theatre DeLeese because he wanted me to give up the White Barn.
That's the theater in New York. Now, we're really coming to Off-Broadway
I'm glad
now.
you...
Yes. So, in other words, he wanted you to give up the White Barn. You had started that in 1947.
After 15 years, we took a sabbatical. And he said, look, we saw a play down there. In fact, I met Bill DeLeese. He came to my theater and he said, I'm going to run it like you have the White Barn, a club theater. They did a show called Frankie and Johnny that lasted one night. And then he said, this is it I'm going to get for you. And it took him about almost 5 years to get the theater because we never could find the owner. Bill DeLeese didn't own it. He just rented it. And he disappeared. So
this is the Theatre DeLeese in Greenwich Village.
Yeah, and it is now named after me.
It's now the Lucille Lortel
Theater.
Yes.
And it was Actors Fund who really said, why call it Bill DeLeese? And the critic in Washington
Richard Coe
said, why don't you name it after...
Is he the person who first called you the Queen of Off-Broadway?
He did,
Richard
because
Coe?
at the time I was doing Threepenny, then I did Brecht and Brecht, and as I told you, I knocked at the door as a reading at the Belasco Theater, and that was the first reading on Broadway of O'Casey's play. Then I did it at the Cockadoodle Dandy at the Carnegie Hall Playhouse, and the River Line, Charles Morgan's River Line at the Carnegie Playhouse. And then I did The Balcony and La Night. And while Threepenny was going on, I was doing
We should say that the Threepenny Opera, after you acquired the Theatre DeLeese,
ran for about 7 years.
That the first thing you really did there was the Threepenny Opera, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Theatre DeLeese, and
then I did Brecht and Brecht.
But it turned out to be such a hit, running 7 years, that you had to start producing elsewhere, other places.
And not only that, then I started what I call the Anti-Matinee series.
Now, what was that?
That was
the Anti-Matinee series.
Anta wanted to do something at the time of doing plays, and they didn't have enough money to do it. And I suggested, why not do, while Threepenny was running, what I do at the White Barn, but we'll do it on a matinee. And I did the same sort of thing I do at the White Barn.
At the Theatre DeLeese.
At the Theatre DeLeese. And we did that for 20 years.
Did you really?
And it was on a Tuesday matinee when actors that are playing at Broadway could also play on a matinee. And several of them, like Richard Burton and Catherine Nesbitt, were playing on Broadway. They did the matinee
series.
Dylan Thomas. Dame Sybil Thorndike was playing in the potting shed with her husband, Sir Lewis Casson. They did it on Broadway. So it was very exciting for them to be able to do things that they ordinarily didn't get a chance to do on Broadway. It was something that they did. And Arlene Hackett was one of them. She did Before Breakfast. Now, she was always cast as a comedian, more or less. She was playing on Broadway in Dark on Top of the Stairs. And she did Eugene O'Neill's Before Breakfast. We had Catherine Ann Porter's Pale Horse, Pale Rider, John Dos Passos USA with Sada Thompson. A lot of them I did at the White Barn and then brought it to the matinee series.
So you kept the theater running. I mean, you were as the Threepenny Opera was going on, and then
but I kept doing.
But you kept doing all these other things.
Off-Broadway, matinee series. I don't know where I found the energy, and then I couldn't give up the White Barn, so I still kept the White Barn for 30 years. Then I was going to quit. Then it was 40 years, and I said, "This is it. I'm getting on, and that's it." But when you find a play like Anna Hackett had of
Margaret Sanger,
I just said, "No, I just can't."
So you had another series.
A half a year.
Another series. Tell me then, it seems to me you had another series that you developed, which was at the Library of Congress.
Yes. That.
How did that happen, and what did that consist of?
Well, the librarian there came to see the O'Casey play that I did in New York, and they liked it and asked me if I would do it there. I said, "It's finished. I can't." So he said, "Well, whenever you have anything, please let me know." And so I did things at the White Barn. I used to have them come up, and we did about 18 years at the Library of Congress.
What space did you do it in? At
the Library of Congress, and the last thing I did there was a walk in the woods.
Yes.
So that was my 18th year at the Library of Congress.
So you had a long-running association.
I did the Japanese Mishima play, first at the White Barn, then at the Delice, and then at the Library of Congress. So I just kept on going.
And then now, of course, the theater after you had after the Threepenny Opera, you had Brecht on Brecht.
That ran for about a year.
That ran for about a year.
A little over a year.
And then, of course, it's considered one of the best, if not the best, off-Broadway theaters. Actually, what was the Delice.
Well,
I
think
it's
probably the most prestigious.
Yes.
Because I did Catherine. The two-character play.
I'm not sure which one you're speaking of right now. Go ahead.
Just not so long, we did Groucho, and we did, right now, Steel Magnolia is playing.
There.
Well, isn't that off of the poet who, the roses,
Oh, yeah, Gertrude Stein. Absolutely, Gertrude Stein.
Gertrude Stein and the Companion.
Yes.
Which we won an Emmy for. And I did Medal of Honor Rag.
Yes.
That was
Tom Cole, I think. Yes, that was a
so I did that type of play whenever, and if I didn't find anything to do at my theater that I was producing, I would get things. Not About Poets was done there. This right now, Steel Magnolia is going on for 3 years.
Is it starting its third year?
Yes. Cloud 9
yes.
was done there. Isn't It Romantic? I didn't always produce them, but it would have to be by arrangement
with you.
It's my taste
Sure.
that goes there. But
Absolutely.
I must tell you about Cloud 9.
That's the Carol Churchill play.
Yes. They gave me a reading in my apartment, but it wasn't actors that read. It were playwrights. All playwrights who are not very good actors. I couldn't make out head or tails out of that play.
It was a strange play.
He was the wife of one thing, then he became the father in the next act. So I think a lot of the Royal Court. I met George Devine when I was in England, and he suggested that we change plays. He liked what I liked and what he did. Well, I called them up to find out more. I didn't know anything about Carol Churchill. And they said that it didn't go to the West End, but they thought she was very talented, and they said, you really have to see the play in action. You can't judge from a reading. And I was sorry I didn't lend my name to it, because when I saw it in rehearsal, I was fascinated with it.
Yes, it was a fascinating
And that
play.
ran for a couple of years.
Quite a while at the theater.
Lortel Theater then. And during that time, they changed the name to the Lortel Theater. Actors Fund had a benefit. And it was during Cloud 9, and said, "This is
When we'll now call it the
We'll call it
Lucille
the
Lortel.
Lucille
Well, I
Lortel.
think you had it long enough at that point. It was everybody knew that it was really your theater.
Well,
in terms of
I've been always
totally
doing,
associated
but at
with
that time, I really, before I went to other people, before actors on Broadway, the Brooks Atkinson and all of those, I wanted to name it after O'Casey or Brooks Atkinson, but Richard Madden-Office, who was the agent, didn't feel that it was worthwhile to name it a Little Off-Broadway Theater. But there were no theaters named after any well-known person on Broadway then.
And now, of course,
Now
they're
it's all over the
good.
place.
Tell me a little bit about Lanford Wilson and Angel's Fall. You helped bring that to Broadway.
Well, they tried it out first at the White Barn.
Oh, they did, yes.
And he was very sweet. He's rather a shy man, and he liked what I did, giving him an opportunity to work on it. And I did another play of his, an opera of his, that went over very well. And Circle Rep tried out several things at the White Barn before they did it in their theater. But that was the purpose of the White Barn.
Surely.
And it's really my purpose for anything I do is to help new playwrights and have people have a chance to do what they want.
So, but Angel's Fall sort of went full circle. It started at the White Barn.
Then it went Circle
Then
Rep.
it went to the Circle
and
Rep,
it went
and
to
then you
Broadway.
took it to Broadway.
Terrence McNally is another chap that started out at the White Barn. And then he did a play called Next, and Jimmy Coca was
Yes.
in that. And then later he was cast in The Red Hot Lover on Broadway, they saw him. But Jimmy played in The Typist and the type. He did that first at the White Barn for me.
Oh, really?
And then Eli Wallach and Ann Jackson wanted to do it at the Jalise off Broadway, but I had breast and and I couldn't do it then.
So you couldn't do it.
And I wouldn't do it without Jimmy Coco because I thought it was unfair. He wasn't known, but then he became better known than Eli Wallach later.
Lucille, on this note of all the people you've helped at the White Barn and off-Broadway and on-Broadway and the Antna Matinee series, and with what you've done with The Walk in the Woods and the things you're going to continue doing, I want to thank you so much for being with us. This has been the Harold Clerman Seminar in Theater. I'm Ed Wilson, and my guest has been Miss Lucille Lortel. Thank you so much for being with us.
The preceding program was made possible in part by a generous grant from the Educational Foundation of America.